Okay, so hi guys, welcome to another acrylic painting, and today we're going to do a dirty pour. So I've mixed up my colours here already because that's kind of the boring part. What I've used here is pretty much half PVA glue, which is this stuff. You can buy this in pretty much any store. It's just cheap PVA glue. So half of that and half acrylic paint. Now you can use all sorts of different brands for that, whether it's Basics, or whether it's Liquitex or Winsor & Newton, whatever you get in your country. So these are the colours I'm taking in. This messy one here, which I'm not particularly fond of, but hey, we can't be a paint racist, can we? You got to involve them all. I'm just giving them a mix up because they've been sitting for a little while I was setting up the cameras. Although it does tend to generate a few bubbles, but if you let it sit for a short while, a lot of those bubbles should pop by themselves. Okay, so I'm also going to add a little bit of this coconut milk, which is an anti-breakage serum. Not that I need it. Well, you can't see the fact I don't have much hair. But anyway, we're going to add a little bit of that there into some of the cups, just a small amount, because I hear this stuff's pretty strong, as opposed to using something like a silicone oil, which I haven't had great results with, to be honest. But this stuff generally really works for me. I'll just show you a quick one. This one, that's the kind of cells you should get using the coconut milk. So that's kind of roughly what I'm aiming for. Although at the same time, it's important to remember that doing this type of art is very, very unpredictable. So you never know what you're going to get. But I quite like it for that reason. Okay. So to start with, we're going to get our canvas. I'm just putting it on some old cup containers. Okay. Important to get this balanced out to start with. So I'm going to start off with the white, just putting a sort of base layer of white onto the canvas. This should help whenever we do the pour of all the other colours. It should help all the other colours to slide around and get to the edges much easier. Because if you just pour it straight onto that, it's going to resist, and it's not going to be easy to force it to move over. And if you tilt the canvas up too much, the paint's going to mix too much, and it's just going to become muddy. Okay, so don't have to be so accurate with this. It's just a matter of putting down a little bit of a base. To give the other paint something to slide on, just to reduce the friction basically. Okay. As you can see, I'm layering it down pretty heavily, so it really has quite very much a liquid surface. Just do the edges, because I always think if the edges don't look right, it just destroys the whole painting. So you've got to have the edges wet as well, so the paint runs over. smoothly and doesn't resist. Okay. As for the amount of paint you use, obviously it depends for each canvas. I just judge it. I've done a few canvases by now, so I just judge it. I just guess it really. But there are plenty of charts on the internet that you can find if you want to look those up. That'll tell you the exact amount of paint you need to cover a certain size of canvas. But I'm just guessing it, to be honest. You know. Right, so the only thing I need to do now is really to put in a little bit of this coconut milk. So it's actually a hair product, you know. So I can't remember the name of the chemical in it that's an important chemical, but just offhand. So I'm only putting a little bit of just a few drops into each cup. Okay. Now I want to give that just a gentle mix, not too much. Okay, so this is actually my first YouTube video, so be gentle with me. Hopefully that camera is still running. I'll be gutted if this turns out well and the camera has shut down. Similarly, I'll be gutted if I go through all this and the painting turns out rubbish. Anyway, we're going to find out either way. Right, so I'm going to start off with, I'm going to layer all the paints into one cup, and the idea then is to flip it onto the canvas. So I think I'll start with the darker one, which is probably the magenta, I'd say. Okay, so this will be our base cup. Make sure when you're doing this, whatever cup you choose for the base has got a smooth edge, especially if you've used the cup before, you may get bits of paint sticking on the edges. So then whenever you turn your cup upside down, the paint is going to come out the sides. It's going to, because of that. So make sure, just run your finger around the top and be sure that the cup is actually smooth enough. That one feels okay to me, to be honest. Right, so next up, put in this sort of bluey green. So pour it in real slow. Okay, next up we'll go for the yucky one. Oh, a little bit of a lump in there. Hopefully we can find that later. I'm not going to put all of that in because I'm not crazy about that colour. Okay. And the white. So as I say, today we're doing a dirty pour. So it's basically pouring everything into a cup, turning it upside down on the canvas and just releasing it and see what happens. Very unpredictable, but sometimes that's simply the best way, without control. Now this is the bit that always will put your, it's probably easier just to actually grip the canvas with your hand. Now, so we place the canvas on top. So this is the scary bit. So with a quick turnover, we're back on the cups. So I'm just going to let that sit for a second and allow the paint to sort of fall down through each other. Let it mix a little bit. Hopefully it won't become too muddy. So the consistency of the paint to the PVA glue is pretty much half and half. Now, after you've mixed that, I also added in, this is my own mixture of, it's a little bit of Floetrol, about 10% Floetrol and 90% water. It just helps to soften up the paint basically, and hopefully without breaking down the polymers, so it's not too transparent. So I think we're about ready to go with this. Obviously make sure your area is well covered in plastic, because the paint has a liability, it could go anywhere, as you can see from my previous examples or previous tests. So here we go. Okay, so quite a few cells happening there already, as you can see. I'm just going to let it sit for a second. If there are a few air bubbles, you can take a heat torch, excuse me while I put mine in. So just going to give it a little bit of heat. That should help to pop some of those bubbles that have surfaced. Apologies for the squeaking on the floor. I'm taking no chances with my rug. Okay, so now we begin the pour. Going to move it around, try and get it out to the corners. Slowly, slowly. Okay. I'll try for... Okay, I don't want to stretch the cells too much. I want to try and keep as much paint on the canvas as possible. I hope that's in focus for you. Unfortunately, my camera doesn't have live autofocus, so I've just got to pick a point and it'll be stuck on that point. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Now, once you've done your pour, it's important to have a look around the edges, and you can just take your finger and fill those bits in. Check there's no bits missed. you can usually use your finger to lift some of the paint that has fallen off on that edge, just to make sure it's a good match, because obviously it's not really a good idea to just use paint from there and apply it over there. It's gonna look strange, but it's so tempting just to jump from one corner to the other. Okay, so I'm seeing that big lump of paint. What's my best way of getting it out? I'll take this paintbrush. Gotcha. Okay. So that's all the hard work done. Now you gotta leave it to dry for a year. No, I'm joking. 2 years maybe. Okay, on average for my paintings, I'd say probably 2 to 3 days for it to dry. But even by tonight, I'd say that would be, the edges would be starting to dry off, and then I'll take the opportunity to lift it and move it somewhere out of the way. So you do tend to have to keep an area, if possible, have an area where you can leave your painting sitting after you've poured and just walk away and just let it sit. That's probably the best advice I could give you regarding avoiding any future accidents. Okay, so hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.